Do we know if we have anyone in the queue? This is water, by the way, if anyone's curious.
Good evening, Marshall. We are ready to go whenever you are.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming or tuning in, I guess, seeing how we're doing this by Zoom. So I guess we'll kick it off at 6:30. So Michelle or Rick, as I see you're identified on the screen, if you want to call the roll.
Sure. That's really weird that I'm identified as Rick Brown. This is Michelle Scherer. Okay, so we have Marshall Scott Collier, Lynette Baker, Jeff Baker,
here,
Councilmember Dave Bernalino,
here,
and Captain Mundell.
here.
Do we have John Bradley? Looks like he is absent. And we know Denny Welker is absent today as well.
And Brad's here, and Officer Kircher.
Oh, and Sergeant Winling and Officer Kircher. All right.
Okay, first item on the agenda. I'm hoping you had time to review the minutes prior to now. So does anyone have any changes or suggestions for the minutes? Seeing and hearing none, I'll assume that they are approved by acclamation without objection. All right, the minutes are approved.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm Joe Hafer. I'm representing Metro West. Sorry I'm late. There was a
No
record
problem.
9 that I responded to. So I'm sitting in for John Bradley this evening.
Awesome. Glad
Okay.
you're with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
So you didn't miss anything, just approval of the minutes from last time. So now it's time for public comment. Do we have anyone in the audience? If that's the right term.
We do have Councilmember Clark, but I believe she is just watching. Councilmember,
Okay.
if you would like to speak, let me know, either by using raise your hand and I can promote you over.
Okay, great. All right, moving on to old business. There we go. First item on the agenda is update on the draft deer management plan. So we met last month with the, was it the Public Works and Administration Committee? Yes. Okay. And went over the plan with them. They had some comments and concerns, but I think overall, rather accepting of the idea. There's a few things. There appeared to be consensus in the committee there about proposing a no feed ordinance. That didn't appear to be controversial at all. There was a lot of discussion about under Objective C, the reducing the deer population, about allowing hunting by allowing property owners to combine their property. And I think that gets down to a lot of detailed concern about, which side of 109 based on population density and whatnot. Regarding that, there was, they were very pleased with the overall review that was done. I think they would like us to do a little deeper dive on, get some data on sharpshooting, success rates, safety concerns, et cetera. All in all, I thought it was a really good meeting. We even had participation from the community. There were several members of the public that attended online and were making chat comments, et cetera. Most of them very helpful and useful. Bottom line is we'll just have to reconvene the subcommittee next month and we'll go over in detail what came out from that. It's pretty much the plan. Dave or Brad, I mean, you were both there. If you had anything you want to add.
Thanks, Scott. That was basically it in summation. The council was very pleased with all the work that was done. Just want some more, a little bit, as Scott said, deep dive into a couple things that might be troublesome, but overall, I think we got a very good package, and with a little bit of tweaking, come back to the council. I think we'll get an action on it.
Yeah. Any questions from the group at all about that? All right, you're welcome for the excellent summary. So next up, the bids for the City Hall security cameras. Rick?
I think I'm going to actually ask Captain Mundell to handle this item, if that's okay, Captain. Are you prepared to do so?
I'll defer to Sergeant Wendling and Officer Kircher. And actually, just to compliment them, they did all the hard lifting on this that went out for bid. Well, the backup, some of the members were not present when this started. We're going back a year plus, probably 2 years almost. So kind of hammered out the system we were looking at compared to what we kind of had in place. One company bid, we had to backtrack due to some federal requirements on the equipment we were going to use. So that kind of pushed us to go out for bid again. And then we had an overwhelming response. I think there were 12 or 13 different companies that came out, did walkthroughs, and Sergeant Wendling spent a couple hours probably with each of those potential contractors, walking them through the building, answering questions, to that effect. As a result, I believe we got 9 proposals, and Officer Kircher and Sergeant Wendling spent a lot of time combing through each one of those proposals. We disqualified a couple of them because they didn't comply with the requirements regarding the cameras, leaving us with kind of the low bid, but not the low bid. What was interesting, and I think it's in your packet, was the price difference from $43,000 to $106,000 for basically doing the same thing, which was kind of amazing to see that there was that big of a difference. But we think that the one we're recommending uses some good quality equipment and is going to do what we needed to do. And to further add, Sergeant Wendling and Officer Kircher both took a road trip over to Illinois to 2 facilities. One's a school district in Granite City, I believe, and the other one was a police department. And they can correct me on those, where they could see the stuff in action and how it works and get comments from people that are actually using the equipment. So we feel good about the fact that we've kind of had a hands-on look at something and been able to ask users how things are working. So with that, I will throw it over to them for any further comment or any questions that the board may have.
So you did a nice job summarizing everything, Captain.
Naturally.
And so with a really broad brush, basically, we reviewed all the bids that were submitted, and we started out with the criteria. The major criteria that was specified was that all components meet the requirements of the John McCain National Defense Authorization Act for 2019. And basically that requires that it prohibits the use of components basically that are manufactured in China. So we found several of the bids were going to use, or the vendors were going to use components that were manufactured in China, or we could not verify that they were NDAA compliant. So we used that criteria basically to eliminate several of the proposals that were submitted right off the bat. And then that left us with I think five vendors that met those requirements. And basically, we went from there. We basically looked at the proposed costs for the systems, and the major thing that we really looked at were the software and the hardware components of the system, that they were going to be good quality and whatnot. So Utilitra was the vendor who came in with the lowest bid, actually, and the components that they use are widely used across the country by federal agencies and many government agencies, such as school districts and other entities. So the software Genetech that Utilitra uses, that company is based out of Canada. And then all of the cameras for that system are from the company that's Axis, and that's a Swiss company that manufactures the cameras. So interestingly, really, I mean, there was all of the vendors that were still being considered after the NDAA elimination. They all either used Avigilon, which is owned by Motorola, and or Genetech software with Axis cameras. So really the components of all the proposed systems were quite similar, and we were just really looking at two different brands. There was Hackett Security, they use Panasonic, and they're more of a consumer grade level product, but their bid actually was a little over $10,000 higher than Utilitra. So Utilitra, they came out on site as well, and they did a kind of a demonstration of all the camera views that they had proposed in their system design, so we could see, what the system, all the views would look like and everything, and all that looked really good to us. Gary Cruz joined us on that day and was part of that as well, and he was equally impressed with everything that Utilitra had proposed. So really, it just kind of came down to the bids. I mean, all the components are comparable. I think you have more flexibility with the Genetech software compared to the Avigilon. It's just much more integratable with existing. Like if we were to already have had some cameras, or if we want to add cameras in the future, or other types of sensors, or like entry, controls for access points on doors and things like that for security. You can expand the system in the future to be, that being a component of the system and integrated with the video surveillance system as well. So we just basically thought that Utilitra would be the way to go. So we scheduled a couple of site visits, like the captain mentioned, and we went out to the Granite City Police Department and the East Alton School District just to take a look at their systems and speak with employees to get their feedback. And all their feedback was positive, and Utilitra came with a high recommendation from them, both of them. And the East Alton School District, actually, they're gonna, they have some projects that are planned for the future and in progress, and they're actually using Utilitra for those projects as well. So they're very satisfied with their services. So the customer service and support from Utilitra, everything that they had to say was all positive. So we believe that they would be a suitable and reputable vendor to select. So I really, I don't know if you all have any specific questions, we'll be happy to answer any questions to the best of our abilities. If you get too technical, we might not be able to give you perfect answers, but we'll try. Mr. Bertolino. Looks like
Yeah, Brad, just a quick question. Have these installations that you did visit, had they had their equipment installed for a considerable amount of time? So you had some sense of follow-up after the sale kind of thing, where they was Utilitra good at following up and making repairs and being available? Or was it too soon to have this?
Yeah, no, actually both have been customers for several years, utilizing Utilitra. I believe East Alton, their system's been operational for 2 to 3 years, I believe. And Granite City, they actually integrated some existing cameras with the new system. And they have some new cameras that Utilitra installed, but Utilitra tied into all of their existing cameras. So it was probably even a more complicated project, but they said everything works excellent for them. The interesting thing with Granite City, they've installed several license plate reading cameras at all the access points to their city. And it's really relative to some crime issues that they've been having. And they've been pretty successful in developing leads on different criminal activities that have been occurring over there. They get hits on the license plates and whatnot. So they have a starting place with a lot of their investigations that they otherwise wouldn't have. But they spoke very highly of the system and the existing integration with their existing components. They haven't experienced any problems, major problems. So as a note to the responsiveness of customer service and repairs and whatnot, Granite City did say that on occasion they've had a couple of their cameras that have gone out due to storm-related issues. And as soon as they contacted Utilitra, they were out and had everything operational in less than 24 hours. So their customer service and follow-up seems to be pretty good. On East Alton, they have had no problems with their system at all. So they've, I mean, it was a brand new system all around. So it was they utilized the access cameras and the same software. So it would be extremely comparable to the system, you know, that they proposed for us. The software is pretty neat. It's really user friendly, and it has a lot of features that are very nice. It allows for remote access to the system also by cellular phones or smartphones or tablets. So if somebody's offsite, you can actually, if you have permissions to do so, you can access the system and pull up the cameras for viewing. You just can't do all the searching, you know, through the video recordings and things like that, but it'll give you live views of all the cameras that are on the system, which is pretty neat. The software is pretty impressive, especially if you're searching for a specific incident. You can create or highlight area of interest in a particular field of view on a camera. And if you want to search for activity, you just draw a box in the camera image, and it'll search for activity in that specific area. So it was pretty impressive. At the school, the IT director, he pulled up a camera that's on a parking lot, and he highlighted a parking space, and he was able to, you know, do a search for the video over the last day, and it would show you exactly when there was motion in that spot. So you could literally see when a car parked in that spot, when that car pulled out, when a new car pulled in, and so on. So it's pretty impressive software that with this system.
Dave, please.
If I may, one more question, Brad. Were there any ongoing costs, any annual maintenance? I know they say you have a 3-year warranty on their product. I assume that means if something happens to the product itself that it's warranted, but the service calls and so on, is there a contract for that, or is that just part of their sale?
So there is, and that wasn't specified in their proposal. But Mr. Vunich, actually, we had a meeting and that came up in our meeting. And so he asked Andrew Petroline from Utilitra to give us a bid for that. So basically a full service contract for maintenance would cost around, it's a little over, I think it was a little over $5,000 a year. Is that right, Captain? You know, recall that? Okay. So yeah, a little bit over $5,000, and that includes everything basically. If any component to the system would go bad or break, they'll replace that. That's all included, all their labor, and it includes all their customer support and everything, and all updates to software upgrades and whatnot. And that can be kind of complicated as far as the updates go, but any updates that would be applicable to the system. And from what I understand, you have to be aware of your hardware components that you specifically have, because it may not be beneficial to install some updates. It might be more beneficial to just keep running your system on an older version. But it kind of gets complicated. But Andrew, the staff there, they would provide guidance with all that and make sure that everything's done properly with all the updates in the future to the software.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment from Teresa Clark. She says, are we 100% confident that the selected companies comply with the Secure and Trusted Communication Act and do not use any components from Hussein or ZTE? Do we have any components in use now from these companies that need to be replaced?
So all the components of the existing system are going to be removed. So that will not be a concern whatsoever. And yes,
Okay.
all the components that are proposed by Utilitra are in compliance with the NDAA.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. So, Rick, I'm assuming that the purpose here is for us to give our approval before sending it on to council, or is that what is contemplated?
That would be appropriate. If the board would pass a motion supporting the recommendation, that would be most appropriate.
Do I hear a so moved from anyone, or raise of hands to do so?
So moved.
All right, a second? I see 2 seconds. That's a second and a third. That's good. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the bid by Utilitra for the security camera and software, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. It is unanimous and it has passed.
Thank you all.
Yep, thank you.
No, thank you for both for the report and the excellent summation of the information.
Rob got off the hook too easy. I think you didn't have to say anything. So,
Now,
fair.
Officer Kircher will do his PowerPoint presentation.
We got to listen to him in the office all day long, so it's okay.
Lots of talk.
Gotcha. Okay, next item on the agenda is the request for a stop sign on Fullerton Meadows Drive. Rick?
Actually, I think, don't we have Thunderhead Canyon first? Right.
Oh, you're correct. Sorry about that.
I'm trying to be organized. but you threw me there.
Thunder Canyon Drive, traffic concerns. Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Board members, I think most of you will recall this item from a prior meeting last fall. In October, the department presented this issue to the board at that time, and it's an issue that stems from resident concerns relative to the amount of traffic on Thunderhead Canyon Drive. In particular, concern that a lot of the traffic that's on that road is cutting through to go other locations. So if you recall, Thunderhead Canyon is a roadway that connects to Clayton Road on the north and West Glen Farms on the south. So a lot of traffic coming off of Clayton Road uses Thunderhead Canyon to access West Glen Farms and points to the south of that. During the discussion at last October's meeting, you were presented information relative to the traffic volume and the percentage of traffic that is cutting through on Thunderhead Canyon from Clayton Road to West Glen Farms and also to and from Clayton Road and Route 100. At that time, the discussion pointed out that MoDOT had work and improvements underway on Route 109, and it was questioned that the improvements in the construction that included lane restrictions on 109 may have impacted the data that was provided to the board last fall. So there was a motion made for the department to essentially reassess the data at such point when Route 100 or Route 109 was no longer under construction. So as of last May, that was the case. The 109 work had been completed by MoDOT. The lane restrictions had been removed, and we were considering to go back out per the motion of the board and resurvey traffic and recount traffic on Thunderhead Canyon. However, as you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic and schools were closed in May, and it was not a suitable time to do that. We figured that by August, hopefully, schools would be back in session at least, and we would reconsider the traffic data at that time. And fortunately, August has come and gone, and as you know, schools, or at least most of the public schools, are not open in person. Obviously, some private schools are. So we felt at this point, it'd be better to move forward and capture some data and complete a new survey and count of Thunderhead Canyon instead of deferring any further action. And so we actually did that work here towards the end of August. So I provided with you an updated traffic count in your memorandum for Thunderhead Canyon that we completed for the days of August 25th through the 27th. And it does show, if you just look at the traffic, the weekday traffic count on Thunderhead Canyon, it does show it to be reduced from the count we had last year in 2019, as well as a prior count from 2018. So this year we were at 1,630 cars a day, average weekday traffic. Last year we were at 2,120, and we were at 2,020 in 2018. So not a surprise, I think, given the situation at hand right now. I do make the point, and I think I made the point last fall, that traffic volumes in residential streets are subjective, but it would be my opinion that a good number to look at for a maximum volume is around 1,000 cars over the course of a day. So we're at 1,600 here, we were at over 2,000. So from that perspective, more traffic than we'd like to see on that road is in place. So we also updated and went forward and updated our origin destination survey that we provided to you in October. Just recently, we had 4 staff members in the field documenting license plates. We had 2 at Clayton Road, 2 at Route 100 or near Route 100. And the intent was to capture the amount of cut-through traffic, not just to West Glen Farms Drive, but to capture the cut-through traffic between Clayton Road and Route 100. So we didn't get as specific to look at how much was going over only to West Glen Farms due to staffing constrictions, unfortunately. But nonetheless, we did get the data overall updated for the cut-through traffic between Clayton to 100, and I provided that to you in the memorandum as well. And just to summarize that, essentially, if you we looked at both the morning and the evening peak hours for comparison. We only took data for 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening. If you look at the evening peak hour from 5 to 6 p.m., and strictly look at the cut-through traffic, there were 21 vehicles, or 3.2% of the traffic, that were cutting through in the evening hour from 5 to 6 p.m. And then in the morning hour, there were 17 vehicles that cut through between Clayton to 100. That accounts to 3.9% of the overall traffic. And for comparison to the prior study that we did last fall, in the evening we had, as a percentage, we had 10.4% cutting through last fall. Now we had 3.2. So we saw a significant decline in that respect, which could be indicative of the work on Route 109 being completed. And then in the morning, we had 4.6% cutting through last fall. That number went to 3.9. So not much difference in the morning hour overall. So I did want to present these numbers to the board because we said we would try to update the data after the 109 work was completed. Unfortunately, we are still in the midst of a pandemic. And so I can't say that the data is as accurate as we would like. It reflects where we're at right now. I think at this point, I'm open to any suggestions from the board moving forward. If you'd like to table this until such time as we are out of the pandemic, we could certainly revisit this at that time. I suspect that's going to be many months, maybe next year at some point. I don't know that I have a good recommendation for the issue of traffic volume on Thunderhead Canyon, unfortunately, or the issue of the cut through. I will make the point that when the board looked at the issue of cut through traffic for comparison on Etherton Road, I think many of you remember that discussion where we ultimately did enact an ordinance restricting cut through traffic between 109 and Wild Horse Creek Road. The volumes of cut through traffic at that location were significantly, many times higher than here. The percentages were on the order of 60 to 70% of the overall traffic were cutting through. So quite a bit different situation in that instance than we have on Thunderhead Canyon, where we're less than, we're around 3 to 4% this point in time. So I will I'm certainly available for any questions or comments from the board. And I think I'll wait for any recommendations from you as far as further action on this topic.
Questions, suggestions for Rick? While I'm a little concerned that, we may be getting, due to the COVID, some traffic reductions due to that, I don't see these numbers, at least the recent numbers, really leaping out at me as far as, particularly as a percentage of the cut through traffic. So perhaps this is something we just wish to table for a while. I'm not seeing anything that makes me want to, adjust traffic with signs or speed bumps or anything, at least at this point. I hate to say that, but the numbers are what the numbers are. Yes, Dave, please.
I concur, Scott. I don't think there's anything we need to do at this point. And I don't know, even if the numbers warranted it, I don't know what we do to enforce, restricting the traffic. I mean, it would almost be, and Captain Mundell, you can jump in there, it would almost mean posting 2 officers or 2 cars on the south end and the north end almost daily to track. And as you pointed out before, Captain Mundell, that you don't know who's a cut through and who's a resident. So plus you got Gunnison Gorge as another street that comes into that Thunderhead Canyon. So you don't know how many people are just going over to Gunnison Gorge and going home. I think it's a very, very difficult situation to monitor and to have any impact on. So I hate to sound like the bureaucrat, but let's table it for now.
I agree.
Anyone object to that suggestion? Without objection, we'll table it.
Rick, have we had any other complaints from the residents on that that you're aware of?
No, not lately. I have not had myself complaints. It's been a while. I know I had spoken to a resident some time back about this issue. And I say some time back, probably several years. I think this more recently came from a contact the mayor may have had. That's my recollection, but I've not had that contact with the resident directly.
Okay. All right. Now, Fullerton Meadows Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Moving on to Fullerton Meadows Drive. Councilmember McCutcheon from Ward 5 has asked that the Board of Public Safety review a request to consider an all-way stop sign be installed on Fullerton Meadows Drive. And I provided you some information in your packet relative to Fullerton Meadows Drive. It's essentially an east-west, I would call it an east-west route that connects West Glen Farms over to Forest Leaf Parkway. So we just referenced West Glen Farms, which connects from 100 to Clayton Road. Forest Leaf Parkway kind of parallels West Glen Farms, more or less as a north-south route in that residential area. So a lot of traffic utilizes Fullerton Meadows to connect over from Forest Leaf Parkway, ultimately to go to Route 100. So it's kind of a connector road from that perspective. The road is posted at 25 miles an hour currently, and it varies in width. It has a wider section that does not have driveways accessing the road for most of its length of about 1,900 feet. But the western portion of it, about 650 feet in length, is narrow at 26 foot wide. And there are about 10 property owners that do have driveways that access the road on that western piece of Fullerton Meadows between Forest Leaf Parkway and I believe it's Bob Hawk Court, or maybe Shiva Quarter Drive. So it's kind of a hybrid in that respect. We do have some homes that reside along the road. So to help address this request, the department did complete a traffic count on Fullerton Meadows between July 28th and 30th of this year. I did provide that to you in the memorandum. And again, as we discussed previously, we are in the middle of a pandemic and it is summertime. So the count is anticipated to be lower than most months of the year or typical traffic patterns. But nonetheless, we thought it was worth taking account to see where we're at. The volume that we came up with for this summer, end of July, was similar to Thunderhead Canyon, frankly, 1,570 vehicles a day on that segment of Fullerton Meadows. So that section has been counted previously. And I was going to try to find that number for you, but I know it was higher than the 1,570 when we had counted previously. So I would anticipate that number is probably 20% or thereabouts lower than normal. Also in response to this request, the Wildwood Precinct did complete a speed survey. And I see Officer Kircher may have left us, but we do have Sergeant Wendling still with us to address any questions relative to the speed survey that was completed between July 8th and July 15th of this year. I provided that information to you in the packet as well as a prior speed survey from 2016. The numbers that came out of the speed survey from the Wildwood Precinct showed the 85th percentile speed to be 33 miles per hour and the 50th percentile to be 28 miles per hour. So in the past, when we've considered these things, we haven't had a ton of them lately, but in the past, when we've considered some of these speed surveys, it's kind of been an unwritten rule that when that 85th percentile speed hits 30 miles per hour or greater, it does kind of trigger extra concern for mitigation. And certainly that is the case, appears to be the case for this situation, for this location. I did provide you a 2016 speed survey, which was similar in magnitude in terms of those two numbers. So I would point out that the road does have a gradient to it, and It's about a 10% grade, and it's high on each end where it connects with Forest Leaf Parkway or West Glen Farms. Essentially, then it drops down into a valley in the middle. So it goes down 10% and then goes up about 10% on a grade. So I suspect that does help translate to folks driving a little faster than they should drive in this area. So I'll touch briefly on the always stop sign. The department has talked about their use in past instances relative to speed control. Again, it's not been the position of the department to recommend their use for that purpose. Although we have done so frequently in the past, not so much recently, but using stop signs for speed control is a misapplication of their intended purpose to assign right of way, and it is contrary to standards for traffic control throughout the US. So from that perspective, I've never encouraged their use in that manner. But I think more importantly, from the board perspective, is the issue of the roadway grade in this area. The 10% grade does give me some pause relative to the installation of a stop sign on Fullerton Meadows in this area from the perspective of wintertime conditions, ice and snow. That does provide me some concern if we were to move forward in that respect. I did provide some suggestions for further consideration to address this concern potentially. We had a discussion over on Alton Road earlier and are moving forward with the installation of portable but permanent, not portable, but permanent solar powered LED radar signs. Certainly that could be done in this location. It's a fairly low cost solution that could have some impact. A couple other ideas we've talked with or considered in the past: speed humps to be installed. We do have some installations of what I would call speed cushions over on Forest Leaf Parkway to the west. Those are modified speed humps that are not the full width of the roadway. A speed hump is typically a raise of the roadway about 3 inches in height, about 22 feet in length, that is the full width of the roadway from curb to curb, essentially. They're intended to slow traffic to the speed limit. They're not the same as a speed bump, which is typically much more abrupt and does slow traffic to a greater extent. We do need to use speed humps with caution, because they do affect, if we use a full width speed hump, they will affect all the traffic, including emergency vehicles. So we need to be cognizant of that implication if we were to move forward with a speed hump. And lastly, we did look at the potential, and this was one idea that Councilmember McCutcheon has mentioned as well. Because of the width of the road, particularly as you head towards West Glen Farms, being 39 feet in width, there is some additional pavement there than is really necessary. So you could construct a raised median or modify the pavement section, essentially to try to funnel traffic down to a tighter configuration. So I provided an example of that. I don't know if you saw it in the packet or not, information. Might be able to pull it up on my screen if you'd like me to do that, but that would be an option, essentially a traffic calming option that would probably be on the higher side of cost relative to some of the other ideas, but certainly is feasible. And again, would hopefully slow traffic, provide a calming effect for that area of roadway. And of course, continued enforcement or additional enforcement would be another option that I didn't mention, but certainly the Wildwood Precinct could speak towards that as well. I think my final comment was that before we do much, or before we reach any conclusions with regard to moving forward, I think it would be a good idea potentially to contact, I know Ms. McCutcheon is in favor of this, following up with the individual HOAs of the subdivisions to try to get feedback from those trustees. There's more than one subdivision involved, unfortunately. I intended to try to make some of those contacts before this meeting, but essentially ran out of time. But I'm certainly open to doing that, perhaps, and then reporting back to the board maybe at a subsequent meeting. That would provide some time to do that. And I think I also recommended maybe doing some additional speed surveys to see if the speed that came out of the earlier speed survey is consistent, maybe at a different location, maybe more towards the east end of the road. So those are the suggestions I have for the board. I will be certainly glad or pleased to answer any questions from you at this time.
Thank you, Rick. Questions?
Rick, I would just ask, I know this request came through Ms. McCutcheon, what kind of, I don't know, support from the HOA or the subdivision, have we heard at this point? I know they basically made the complaint to her and, it was brought to us to look at, but is it a pet peeve type of thing, or, is there really an outcry in that subdivision that this is a tremendous problem? And then the other thing, I guess, are the costs associated with a lot of that construction, and who incurs that cost? I would imagine street modifications, the city would incur those costs, but if they want a stop sign in there, that's obviously the first suggested, because it's probably the cheapest way to accomplish what they want to accomplish, as opposed to the reality of those traffic mitigation things. Not really a question there, but
Well, if you don't mind, I could mention a couple things. I think my comment was I agree we should follow up with the trustees of the HOAs, because I have not personally heard this comment. I don't know that you have, doesn't sound like you have either expressed. So I would like to get that feedback before we move forward. And I think we've always found that most options that are considered, it's best to have that buy-in from the residents so that we know they're supportive of it moving forward. So I think that would be very helpful to reach out to them. Or Mr. Bertolino, if you have any ability to assist in that manner, that would be appreciated as well.
I don't know who Deb talked to in those. There's actually 3 subdivisions, if you really want to think about it. There's if you go all the way down, there's New Point is also another development that comes in there. I don't know who were the complainees on this. At one point, you'd have to talk to Deb and ask. I have not heard anything from those developments about it. The closest I came is in campaigning, talking to some of the people. There's only like 10 houses that actually face and have driveways that connect onto Fullerton Meadows. Everybody else is off to the side streets and just have intersections. And one household that I've talked to on that shorter section that's in Forest Leaf or Evergreen, subdivision, did say, oh, there's a lot of speeding. But once you get down to the Evergreen side, the road narrows to a normal width, and I would say 9 times out of 10, there's enough traffic, enough cars parked on that street that it acts as its own calming. I don't know. I remember the last time I've driven down that street and actually were able to go the full length of that, from basically down in Cox Creek, which is where the bottom is, up to the top of the hill, and not have to wait for somebody else to go by because there was cars parked. So I've long-winded answers as I don't really know. Rick, if you want to reach out to him, that'd be great. Or maybe really just talk to Deb and find out exactly who was the complaining parties, and see if she can get more information for you.
Okay. Another comment, if I may, as far as the costs, if we went forward with a raised median, that would be most likely a capital project that would have to be included in our capital improvement program, given the cost. So, and I don't know what that cost is. I can certainly put that together and then bring it back. But I would guess probably closer to $100,000. I don't know if it would be less than that, but you're probably talking closer to that amount, I'm guessing. But we haven't done any cost estimates yet for the raised median.
So we have a suggestion to get more information from the representative, but also possibly from the HOA or HOAs who are impacted. Does anyone have a different thought or suggestion? Seeing none, would anyone care to support that statement with a motion? All we need is the hand. There we go, Lynette. You're brave. All right, do I have a second? There we go, Jeff, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of seeking more input, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. We will seek more input.
Marshall, I'll add to that we'll add some enforcement in that area just for some visibility too.
Okay. Sorry, I muted myself. Probably my wife would wish I'd do that more often. Next up, adoption of the St. Louis Area Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. And I hope you all had time to read all 300 pages.
You could summarize, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, if somebody did, please summarize it for us, because I didn't have time to read all of it either, frankly. So, Mr. Marshall, thank you for that. This item is presented to you. It was presented to the board last time in 2015. Essentially, we have a St. Louis Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan that's in effect and is more or less required by the federal government. And that plan was prepared by East West Gateway Council of Governments, our regional planning organization for the St. Louis metro area. So SEMA has worked with East West Gateway to prepare an update of that plan for 2020. And they have provided that plan to the affected municipalities, essentially for adoption. The plan does cover the St. Louis side, St. Charles County, Franklin, Jefferson, City of St. Louis County, and all the municipalities included therein, as well as the school districts. So it's a very comprehensive document, as you noted already. So the key with regard to the city of Wildwood is that for us to be eligible to apply for federal disaster mitigation funds, we need to adopt this plan. And that's the most important thing to consider, that if we want to get federal help in the future, we need to show that we've adopted it by resolution. So we are presenting it to the board tonight with a recommendation to adopt it. And if the board approves that recommendation, we will next forward a resolution to the city council formally for their consideration to adopt the 2020 Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan for the years 2020 to 2025. If there's any specific questions, I'll do my best to address it at this time.
Thanks, Rick. I think it seems very straightforward. I just have one question, because I did actually run through the plan a little bit, but I noticed that the plan itself is marked as a draft. So has the organization that is putting forth the update, is this the final version? Do we know?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I know the exact answer to that, Marshall. I don't know what their exact time frame is, or whether they require the cities to approve it first and then they approve it.
That was just my question. That's maybe part of that approval process.
Yeah, but you're right. It does say draft on it. I'd be glad to follow up with the board on that regard if you like.
No, I was just curious if you knew. And this is something, I'm new to this, so bear with me, but this is something that comes up annually, so that, adopting this plan allows us, as you said, to engage with emergency management fund should that ever come into play.
Yeah, it's a 5-year plan. So if we adopt it in 2020, we'll be back in 5 years to
5 years ago. Okay, very good. Very good. Okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns from Rick? The document itself, makes a recommendation that we adopt. There's also a draft of a resolution that they are seeking our approval. I'll take the document itself as the motion on the floor. Is there any discussion regarding the draft plan and or resolution seeking adoption by the city? Hearing none. All those in favor of recommending approval or adoption of the plan to the council, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. Raise your hand. Unanimous. It passes and goes to council. Okay. Next item on the agenda. Changes to the traffic schedules.
Board members, this is a very exciting topic.
Or dry does come to mind.
This is house cleaning in large part and reflects the fact that I've been out driving with my 15-year-old daughter in the passenger seat, taking note of traffic control devices in the city of Wildwood. So,
Are you letting her do the driving?
yeah, she's doing the driving. So from time to time, we will notice that there are errors or omissions within our traffic schedules that we've adopted by code that allow us to essentially allow the Wildwood precinct to legally write tickets. So that's really what this this pertains to. And I have 2 requests with this matter this evening that I would like to move forward on. So the first pertains to the Schedule 5, which is the schedule that lists what we call through streets. So we have a schedule that lists all our what we consider through streets in the city of Wildwood. I provided that to you in your packet. It's a number of roadways. And by and large, these are collector roadways. They are roads that funnel traffic from maybe a local residential street to a larger, higher volume street, or to and from residential streets. So they're usually higher traffic volume streets, and a result, because of that fact, we'd like to have, and we are required to, and install stop signs or yield signs on the side road approaches to those through streets. So those are adopted by ordinance, and it's come to my attention that going through the schedule, we currently do not have 2 roads, which in my opinion, we should add to that schedule of through streets. And those 2 roads are Old Fairway Drive and Village Hills Parkway. Both roads are south of Manchester Road. They serve more or less as collector streets for residential neighborhoods. They're a little bit higher volume streets, and we have in place on both streets already some stop signs and or yield signs. So effectively, I want to clean up the fact that we have signs out there already in place. So that's what we've accomplished by adding these 2 streets to the schedule of through streets. So that's the first request, is a recommendation to add Old Fairway Drive and Village Hills Parkway to Schedule 5, which would include them as through streets. So I guess before moving on, maybe I'll open it up to any questions. Well, I guess I'll defer to you, Marshall, how you want to handle it, if you'd like me to move forward to the next request or just handle the first one initially.
No, we'll let's take care of this one before we move to the next one. So again, we have a document making a straight up recommendation. I will accept that as a motion unless someone objects. Seeing no objection, we'll accept that as a motion to add Old Fairway Drive and Village Hills Parkway to traffic schedule 5 in order that Captain Mundell can enforce the traffic laws. So, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the recommendation, please say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Hearing none, it is again unanimous. We recommend the addition of those roads to the schedule.
Thank you. Board members, the second request relative to the traffic schedules is also pretty simple. Schedule 6 lists all of our intersection stops. So when we pass an ordinance to install a stop sign or an all-way stop, if it's not on a through street, it would be enacted by ordinance and then included with Schedule 6 intersection stops. So several years ago, some of you may be familiar at Old Fairway Drive and Nantucket Island Drive, that road, which is real close to Old State Road, was under all-way stop control. There was always a long-standing concern with traffic speed at that location. Around about 2014, the city installed a mini roundabout in lieu of the all-way stop at that intersection. And that mini roundabout is in place to this day. So on Schedule 6 intersection stops, we still have a provision for an all-way stop at that intersection. So the recommendation is simply to clean that schedule up and remove the intersection of Old Fairway Drive and Nantucket Island Drive from Schedule 6 intersection stops to reflect the fact that it is now a mini roundabout. And by adopting Old Fairway as a through street, we have on the side streets yield signs, and there will be a compliance with that fact as well. So that is the request to remove the intersection of Old Fairway and Nantucket Island Drive from Schedule 6 intersection stops. So if there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions for Rick? Again, we have the written document. I'll accept that as the motion without objection. Hearing none, is a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of removing this road from Schedule 6 or due to the roundabout, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Hearing none, it is unanimous. Rick, you got your way once again.
Yeah, thank you. I will move that towards the city council for ordinance change. Thank you.
You bet. That's good stuff, though. We got to clean that up. Oh, I believe that is the last action item on the agenda. Michelle, is there any other, or Rick, are there any other business before us? I don't see any on the agenda.
I don't believe so, Mr. Marshall. I think that's it.
Oh, Dave? Yes.
If I may, Scott, recommendation for an item on our agenda for next month.
Mhm.
And that would be that Rick has put into the budget, plugged the number in the budget for highway safety. What would you call it, Rick? Just highway safety items. This committee over the last, maybe over a year ago or more, came together with a list of about 10 specific locations around the city that we thought were high priority safety issues. And we've tried to budget money to attack those issues. And we want to keep it in the budget, but we do need to look at that list again, I think, Scott, and just make sure that this committee knows what is on that list and what the priorities are.
Okay.
So that when the budget discussion occurs in the council, we've kind of done our homework and we are committing to supporting those improvements.
Good note.
So yeah, I'd be glad to bring that or include it on the agenda for the next meeting if everyone's in favor of that.
That'd be
that's a
great.
recommendation.
Could I get it earlier? Could I get that earlier to look at?
I can certainly do that, yes.
That's fine.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind just sending it to all of us.
We will do that.
So, all right. Any other Comments, questions, suggestions for the good of the order? Yes, sir, Captain Mundell, sorry.
All right. I just wanted to mention within the last week, we've had 3 pretty serious bicycle accidents on the trails. And it's generally people they're not on the paved trail. They've gone off onto the more rugged trails and end up in some kind of a dilemma. And it becomes very labor intensive for the police and the fire department to locate them first off and get to them and get out of there. So we have an intent here to meet with Gary in the parks office and our parks officer, and we'll most likely involve the fire district also, just to see if there's any recommendations we can make or work with the city to kind of improve our locator system or improve our responses, getting in there as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, a lot of times they are back way off the paths and in the woods.
Right.
So it really becomes a challenge to find people. A lot of times it's with their cell phone. Most likely people have a cell phone, and that becomes very helpful, or someone with them has a cell phone, but it's still a challenge. The last incident just occurred yesterday, and Joe, we crossed paths there. He was there. I don't know if you want to throw anything out or give me any suggestions on what we should look at.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a captain that works for us, Luke Holstein, that's been a part of the trail mapping and identification with trail markers. And he's been working with various people, even Eagle Scouts, with projects to try to identify just by letter different areas on those trails. That helps tremendously.
Yeah.
He still has some trail work to do, and we've worked with the Castlewood Park superintendent, and we've done Castlewood, but we've got a large area, to cover. So that's still a work in progress, but that certainly absolutely helps in our response. With our dispatch, we were able to communicate with the fire and police and Metro Air just the other day on our search for the latest victim. He ended up having relatively minor injuries, thank God, but it did take us a while to get to him. So we have a tendency to use cell phone data and pinging their phones to get that accurate longitude and latitude. And sometimes they're on the trail, sometimes they're not. But the bottom line is it's a time-consuming effort. But we certainly appreciated St. Louis County PD partnering with us the other day. It was beneficial. They had bicycles that they used to get through. We have a lot of equipment with our Cub Cadets, and we also have a bike team that works on the weekends in Castlewood and helps from a preventative standpoint, even sharing information with people they come across. So yeah, it's no easy feat, but identifying those maps or those trails with those trail markers is a big help. And getting that information then inputted into our CAD system, that is a big help to us. That way, those people that become either lost or disoriented or become injured can reference where they may be on a trail, specific trail. Oftentimes, they have no clue where they are. So those are the unique situations that oftentimes are more time consuming. But yeah, no, we really appreciate the partnership the other day, and it took us quite a while to find a gentleman. And at the end of the day, he wasn't too far from where we were, but nonetheless in the woods. So but that's a work in progress for us. And Captain Holstein's done a really, really excellent job being dedicated to that trail mapping system. But do you guys have any questions for us in terms of our response? I think we've really come a long way, even having St. Louis County and their ATV occasionally has just been a nice asset, and just being able to communicate with them, knowing that they have the ability to respond with us has certainly been a definite, a great addition to the response package.
Absolutely. Yeah, our park system is huge. So anything we can do to, try and improve response, just everybody being stuck at home, I think the parks and trails are getting used a lot more. And we had a very serious injury over the weekend, and that individual was not from the metro area. He was from outside the area. So we know that people travel because of the reputation of these parks and trails. So, again, you're kind of in the middle of the forest, and finding someone quick and getting them out of there is not an easy task. So,
and they have different parks have controlled the crowding of the parks. They've definitely limited the numbers to either parking spaces that are available. They've prevented people from parking all over the streets and in other parking lots and making their way to the parks. So that's been helpful through the COVID pandemic and kind of controlling that aspect of it. But these parks are becoming more and more popular. We run a tremendous number of calls there, Castlewood included. We have very good relationships with all the park rangers in St. Louis County and beyond. And we work with them a great deal, sharing information, letting them know what resources we have. They look at measures that they can take to help in the prevention of accidents and injury on their end. So it's definitely an ongoing focus that we have, and it's great to see St. Louis County and their assets be a big part of that.
absolutely. I'm sure I'll be in contact with you guys as we try and update or upgrade what we're doing too. So,
Yeah, definitely. I have very good information for exactly what you're talking about. And so, yeah, we'll be in touch for sure, Kevin.
all right, thank you.
Mhm.
Marshall, that's all I have.
That's great. That's good stuff. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, I appreciate everybody's time. I want to be mindful of it. Thank you for attending and getting through a lot of business tonight. Appreciate it. And I know the city appreciates it as well. With that, I will accept a motion for adjournment by simple raise of hand. There you go. Awesome. And it was seconded by Lynette. So all those in favor, raise your hand and say bye.
Bye.
All right, you guys take care.